Hello everyone, it is Valentine's Day, or at least as close to Valentine's Day as I could get on a Sunday Tabletop Tavern Tips video. But yes, welcome to the season of romance and love. Obviously a very important topic for me. Clearly, very important. But in any case, guys, I think we all know why we're here. You guys saw the title of the video. We're here to talk about the only D&D romance that I truly love. And while the title is a bit of an exaggeration, I will say that this is my personal favorite D&D couple. I mean, you already saw the thumbnail. We're talking about Imogen and Laudna. I wanted to take this day to celebrate my favorite Critical Role couple by far and learn some things from them, because this is a romance that takes place in a D&D game, and therefore I think there's a lot of tabletop lessons that we can learn from their romantic pairing. I mean, romance is a whole can of worms sometimes. We've seen it opened many a time on RPG horror stories. We've seen where it can go wrong, but Imogen and Laudna show us how it can go, not just go right, but go brilliantly. So we're going to be learning from that. We're also going to be learning from a negative example. Don't worry, I won't spoil what that example is. It's not a D&D game, but it is, well, it's certainly something. So just get ready for it. Alright though, with that out of the way, let's get into it. Even if you don't watch Critical Role, I think there's a lot of great tabletop lessons you can learn if you want to ever do a romance and do it well at your D&D table. So without further ado, let's learn a lesson or two from Imogen and Laudna. So, first lesson, they are introduced right away in Campaign 3. They're the first characters that we see introduced in the game, and right away, there's a lesson we can immediately learn. And that lesson is creating characters with chemistry. Creating characters that complement each other. Now, this is not always going to be relevant for every single D&D or tabletop romance. Sometimes romance comes spontaneously. In the middle of the game, you realize with another player character, like, hey, I think our characters are really compatible. Do you want to do a romance? And yeah, that happens a lot. But I think equally as many times, or perhaps even more often, I see players planning romance in advance, planning their characters to be in a relationship before the campaign starts. And I think that this is great. I think it's a great way to get consent early on, and if two people want to explore a romantic relationship, that kind of thing is important. It also allows you to build it over the course of the whole campaign. You know where your end goal is, you just need to work your way through the plot. However, I think a lot of players forget that if you want to plan out your romance way in advance, you need to take advantage of all the opportunities that present. Make your characters complement each other in some way. Imogen and Laudna are brilliant examples of this. First and foremost, from an aesthetic point of view, they both bounce off each other really well. Imogen with all her pastel colors, and Laudna with her dark, vampiric, warlock aesthetic. It's great. I love the way they pair together just from a looks angle. Look, your characters aren't always going to be visually represented. We can't all afford artists to draw our characters, but even just your imagination can be powerful. And if anything, without any sort of visual medium to shackle you down, your imagination can take you to cool places when it comes to even just developing the looks of your pair of characters. If you plan your romance way in advance, this is the kind of thing you can think about if you want to. More importantly than aesthetic, though, much more importantly than that, is the backstory of these characters. Immediately upon meeting Imogen and Laudna, we can already tell these two girls have a relationship, some kind of relationship. They have some kind of history. We can already tell that they really care about each other. They have immediate chemistry. And this is, of course, mainly because Laura and Marisha are really brilliant role players. But on top of that, they wrote their characters to be like that. Before the campaign even started, they set up with Matt Mercer, the DM, and established what their character would be like, how they know each other, what their history is. This is really important if you want your characters to have established history. A lot of times, I see people want to explore a friends to romance relationship, but a lot of times there's this awkward getting to know you stage that can bog down the exciting parts of a friends to lovers romance. Not to say you need to skip past that, but if you want to, you can, absolutely, by having that just be in backstory. Imogen and Laudna don't need to play out that getting to know each other phase. They already know each other. They've already met. I think pre-established relationships are really underused in D&D. If you're a nervous role player too, this could be great. If this is your first ever D&D romance, having a pre-established relationship with the other character can be brilliant for allowing you to have some kind of hook to roleplay with if you're new to romantic subplots. Skipping past that awkward getting to know you stage is great if you want to do it. And having a pre-established relationship is a really cool thing for the other players to interact with as well. It's one of my favorite things to do in Dungeons & Dragons and tabletop in general, and I hope more people latch onto this as an opportunity that we see especially emulated by our favorite goth and pastel pairing. Next up, know your timeline. This is nice and relevant. Critical Role is extremely long, and that's another discussion for another day, but my main point here is that the players behind Imogen and Laudna, Marisha and Laura, they know that, and they know their timeline. They know that they have time to do a slow burn romance. Imogen and Laudna, minor spoilers, I guess, they have a very slow burn romance over the course of the campaign. They're not officially a couple, at least to my knowledge, as of recording this video. It's been many episodes, and it just hasn't happened yet. I'm okay with that, though, because the pair are playing out their timeline very, very well. Now, of course, if you want to talk to your DM about this, they're probably not going to have exact knowledge on how long their campaign is going to be, but they can give a ballpark. Are you running a one-shot? Are you running a mini campaign, a long-form campaign? What kind of campaign are we doing here? So you know what your timeline on your romance should be, how fast you need to move, or how slow you can move. Imogen and Laudna are actually a great example of how a fast-moving romance would work. Obviously, this isn't a fast-moving romance. It is slow burn because of how Critical Role is structured. But if they wanted to do it quickly, it would totally work. These two characters have chemistry, they have history, and having them get together after 10 sessions instead of after 60 would work perfectly fine. That would be totally believable. And if you want that, if you want more quick-moving romance, you can learn from the previous points and this point as well. Knowing your timeline, knowing that you only have 10, 12 sessions to do this, and using pre-established history to make it more believable for both yourself and the other players. Both these points work in tandem to make a romance feel more believable and more impactful at the table. The baseline here that I really want you guys to avoid rushing or avoid feeling like you're in a slog. I had to deal with this in my own campaign. I had to cut it short a little bit and rush the ending just a tad in my first ever homebrew campaign, and that resulted in the romance being a lot faster moving than I expected. It was a lot to adapt to, and it's a mistake that I needed to learn from, and I hope you can both learn from my mistakes and Imogen and Laudna's success. Alright, next up, third point, and it's time to bring in our other example. We're bringing in the cavalry, so to speak, and it's not exactly what I'd call a good cavalry, but it's certainly something. So sit down. Okay, sit down. I'm already sitting, so you need to sit too. Sit down, grab a water. I've got one right here. Take a breath, right? Alright. We are going to talk about Velma.
What I've just done today, this brave stunt, is basically diving on a live grenade in order to shield you from the unbearable, insufferable cringe.
Because the show is just bland and unentertaining at its best and borderline unwatchable at its worst.
It doesn't even seem like a real show that would exist. It's more like a fake show that would be in like a Family Guy.
Yep, I know, yes, Velma. I know a lot of you are reacting with, what the hell, Crispy, why are you talking about Velma? But I think that Velma, not only is it a recent piece of media that just released, but also amplifies a lot of the lessons we're trying to learn here by doing exactly the opposite of what you probably should do when trying to build a romantic subplot. If you guys are unaware, in Velma and Daphne have a romance. Actually, there's a lot of romance going on. It's a bit of a love pentagon, really. There's a lot. But my point is that in this romance, I think they do something that I really, really hate. And it's glorifying toxicity. Now, I'm not trying to say that's the point that the writers are trying to get across. I don't think the writers were trying to say toxicity is good, but it's what it looks like. And I think that really, really sucks. Imogen and Laudna have a fair share of drama, just like Velma and Daphne do in the Velma show. Look, we're going to talk about Velma more in depth, so this point works a little bit better, but I want to explain this. A big reason why this show doesn't work for me and a lot of other people is because the party, Mystery Inc., the group of main characters, they treat each other like crap. They're so toxic and rude and terrible, and look, I get it. Sometimes that's how relationships are going to be. Sometimes you're going to have rough spots. I got that, but when it's to this gratuitous level, it just becomes so unfun to watch. And I don't know about you guys, but from a D&D point of view, to me, that would be unfun to play. I don't want to play a game where everyone just hates each other. It's not fun to me at all. And in a romance especially, I think that just does not at all work. Now, let's go back to that whole jealous era thing. If you're unaware, Imogen and Laudna had a bit of a tiff when Laudna accidentally betrayed Imogen's trust and destroyed an object of magical power very special to her. And that resulted in a bit of a falling out between the two.
And then as soon as we get here, Dusk shows up and all of a sudden, I'm hurting and Laudna's just living it up with this new person, smiling and laughing like she doesn't even care that we had a fight.
It lasted for a good few episodes, and during that period, Laudna was flirted with by this other character named Dusk, played by Erika Ishii, and this resulted in Imogen going into a bit of a jealous phase. Just like how in Velma and Daphne realized there's more than friendship feelings between the two of them, but there's a lot of other stuff going on, a lot of other crushes and multiple love triangles overlapping. They both basically have dramatic stages of the relationship. However, they both do it completely differently. In Critical Role, even though Imogen and Laudna have this dramatic era, it's portrayed in a way that is positive. First and foremost, it's mostly comedic, resulting in some of the funniest moments on the show. But on top of that, the rest of the party aren't trying to mock or take advantage of this moment. They're not making fun of it. They're trying to help. Even though there's a lot of comedy that came from this, we saw the positive relationships between Imogen, Laudna, and more importantly, their friends. Whereas in Velma, when all the drama's going down, it feels like everyone's just trying to backstab, mock, and be toxic towards each other. Look, that could absolutely work. But for me, especially in the D&D game, it would not work in any way at all. Imogen and Laudna have their drama. They have a moment of a little bit of a tiff. And it works great because we see them pulling themselves out of it. A positive character arc. I'm not trying to say that everything needs to be lovey-dovey, fluffy-wubby all the time, but even when things are bad, showcasing how a party can help each other pull their way through is great. Look, if you want a toxic party that hate each other, I'm not going to stop you. If that's the kind of game you and your friends enjoy, that's great. But I'm willing to bet a lot of us prefer parties that support each other. And seeing Laudna and Imogen have a support network in a way, having their party backing them up through this tiff, was really, really good to see. It's exactly what Velma needed. Velma as a show needed a group, a party that actually liked each other. Especially for a romantic subplot, having everyone hate each other, it just sucks. In Critical Role, though, we see a group of people who actually seem to care about each other. A couple who actually seem to like each other. A positive relationship even through the tough times. And that's just fun to play through as players, at least in my experience. Not only that, but it just makes them more likable. Something Velma desperately needed. Alright, next up, I've kind of brought it up last time, but include the other players. When you're doing a romantic subplot, it's kind of tempting to have the couple be the central focus. And obviously, of your romantic subplot, you're probably going to be the central focus. You and your partner or partners are probably going to matter the most. Duh. However, doesn't mean that your friends, your party mates, they can't be brought into it. They can absolutely be brought into it. Here, with Imogen and Laudna, we see that a lot. During their whole tiff, FCG, the therapist robot, came in. Ashton, the cool older brother, came in. Orem, the experienced wise guy, came in to help out. That was great. Seeing these players bounce off each other was awesome. But most importantly, Imogen and Laudna themselves weren't really interacting at the time. They were having a fight. So they interacted with the rest of the party. They brought them into the relationship, and that made it all the better. Also on top of that, the jealous era was even insinuated by another player character. Erika Ishii playing Dusk was what made the whole situation explode so much, and it was great. These players were clearly working together to build this dynamic, and seeing it expand beyond two people was awesome. Look, when you put more heads together, you're probably going to get a better product at the end of the day. And even though you don't need to impress an audience with your D&D game, integrating the rest of the party can make them feel included. Look, at the end of the day, you're definitely not going to be the main characters. We don't want that. We don't want the couple, the romance, to be the main focus of the plot. It's going to take the focus sometimes, but even during those times, don't be afraid to include other player characters and other players, more importantly, into the plot in some way. Talk to them for advice. Ask them for help. Maybe ask them to help you prank your partner. That could be a lot of fun and help to integrate the rest of the party and make them feel included. Alright, speaking of integration, this is another thing we'll learn from Velma and from Critical Role. Talk to your DM and integrate the romance into the narrative somehow. Now, this isn't necessarily 100% necessary. You don't need to do this, though I would recommend it. Another big reason, among many big reasons why Velma doesn't work is because these romances, these romantic hexagons, for lack of a better word, these complicated romantic dramas just distract from the main plot of the show. They have very little to do with it, and the writers don't put a lot of effort into making them have anything to do with it at all. This sucks. It really, really sucks. I wish it was integrated because it would make the show a lot more interesting. But Imogen and Laudna, they do integrate their friendship, their relationship, and hopefully their eventual romance into the plot. Imogen and Laudna's backstories are largely very, it's very tragic and traumatic, and their relationship, their friendship helps to pull them through it. We can see how these two people, how they cared for each other, and that is very relevant to the plot. Yeah, it's a little cheesy. It works really well here. It especially makes sense given that a lot of Imogen's trauma has to do with the mental stuff, and what helps you get through mental problems more than someone else caring about you and loving you, right? Sounds cheesy as hell coming out of my mouth right now, but hey, look, I came up with that line earlier. I'm gonna use it, damn it. Look, point is, their romance, their relationship is integrated into the main plot of the story. It doesn't necessarily distract from it, it's integrated in, and it matters to it. On top of that, even when the plot of the romance and the relationship isn't fully relevant, for example, when the party were traveling through, I believe it was called Bassaris, it is the Mad Max city if you've watched Critical Role, but when they were traveling through that city, Imogen and Laudna were having their tiff. Was that tiff entirely necessary to the plot that the party were pursuing? No, but it was well performed and the rest of the players enjoyed it. A big reason why this worked is probably because Marisha and Laura talked to Matt Mercer, their dungeon master, asked him to help them integrate it into the plot. Working together with your DM will make this step all the easier and enhance your roleplay all the more. I'm sure your DM is happy to help you out. We love helping players to integrate their stories into our stories. It's that kind of narrative teamwork that makes tabletop games so special. And here we see it used to brilliant effect, with Matt Mercer working in Imogen and Laudna's relationship to make it matter in the overall plot. Alright, in case you can't tell, I think this relationship is really awesome. I think these two characters work really well together. I think that their hopefully eventual romance, I think it's amazing, and I think there's a lot of lessons that you learned, and I hope this video helped you to take those lessons and extract it from this massive show, and also reminded you how bad Velma is. If you guys enjoyed, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, then you can check out RPG Horror Stories, where we cover the best of the worst of Dungeons & Dragons and tabletop role-playing games, and while you're there in the cards, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out, and finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down to the comments down below. If you can't leave a comment, leave the comment Imodna, I'm pretty sure that's the ship name, to let me know you made it to the end of the video. Before I get to the final part of this outro, I want you guys to remember, during this February, this Valentine's Day, remember, you don't need to use Valentine's Day to just celebrate your romantic attachments. Use this day to celebrate all of your relationships. Cherish your friends, your family, because, look, romance is not the only thing that matters. It's not the only relationship that matters. Your friendships, your family relationships, they matter too. Hold those people tight, because all the people in your life, they all matter. With that cheesy message out of the way, and that's like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.